Hi, guys. Welcome back to our second stream. We're so excited to have you today. Um, my name is Shama. I'm the production lead for Kuthban team. If you don't know yet, our game is a rally game based on the biomes in the UAE. And today we're joined by our programmer, our main programmer, Panya Sun. And we'll be talking about some aspects of user experience design and UI design and what differentiates them. So let's get into our first part of this discussion, which is UX design. So UX design stands for user experience design. And what it essentially revolves around is creating a path for the users to experience the game smoothly. So it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of what it stands for. It covers all the aspects and factors that go into making the user experience as smooth as possible and anticipate what the users want. Now, this is a little different from user interface design, in terms of user interface design, focusing on the feel of the interface. So user experience is more focused on the user, on the journey of the user, but user interface design is focused on the design and build interface components. And while they both always have a user aspect to them, they address certain niches within them that will make your game better as a whole. Now, as I mentioned in yesterday's stream, the roles that each member in a group would take over to develop a game are usually very specific. So typically, you would have one person taking over the role of a user interface design, or one person taking over the role of user experience design. But since we are such a small group, these roles tend to be shared among whoever has the strongest suit in completing them, which is why we have Panya today, who will explain to you what he does for the user interface and the different decisions that go into making them. And you'll also see an interesting demo on this topic. So yeah, stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. So I will go over some of the main menus in the Kuthban. As you can see, I will cover three main menus, which are the main menu, the trucks menu, and the cars menu. And in designing this interface, our main purpose is to make it simple and to help users experience our game smoothly, as well as make them enjoy our game. So let's start with the first one, the main menu. I will show you a quick demo of what the main menu look like with Unity itself. This is the main menu, and let me run it for you guys. The PC is a bit slow, so bear with me.
While it loads, we want you to take note of the interface and what actions are being taken when interacting with the buttons that you'll see on the screen. So keep those in mind and focus on the little details. Focus on what title the button has, what buttons exist below the button, the placements of it, and yeah.
Okay, so it's loading now. So the main menu is the first menu that pops up when you start the game. And it's very basic. So we have the title, Kuthban, and in the middle is the big play button, which is intended for the users to click and play. And then there are other small buttons at the bottom, which are not as important as the play button. And you can see by the size, the placement, and where it is in terms of the screen space. So when you click it, it directs you to another menu, which is the tracks menu. But before we continue with the tracks menu, I want to go over some of the elements of the main menu first. So let me stop the game for now, and let me show you what design is like. So the first main thing is the canvas, which is the whole thing. Like, so the canvas is where all the UI components are located. So if I disable the canvas, then everything is gone. So the canvas is like the paper where everything is drawn on. And when choosing the canvas, there are several things that we need to consider. For example, because this is the main user interface that overlay the whole scene, I choose the screen space overlay, so it covers the whole screen for the users. And for the resolution, it's important that we choose the right resolution, because if, for instance, if we choose something like constant pixel size, when we change the resolution, things might got distorted. So let me show you. So for now, this is the 16:9. And if I change to other ratio, like 16:10, you can see that the space between those icons seem to be squished together, which doesn't look nice. So in order to fix that, it's better to use scale with screen size. And I chose 1920 by 1080 because this is usually the most common resolution any devices. So if I change the ratio, you can see that the space between the icons still remain the same. So it doesn't really affect the space and the location of these icons very much. So that is a bit about how I designed the canvas. And for the icons, we tend to stick with the theme of the game. For instance, because it's in the desert, we tend to use the gold color, and this tend to like sticks across multiple elements. Like if like see the title is kind of golden, and the place button itself is also has this similar color. Okay, let me play one more time to demonstrate. And I just want to tell you that because each button has its own importance, we tend to implement the most important button. For instance, for this main screen, only the play button is working, but we haven't implemented the mission, the ranking, and the settings buttons yet, because these are not as important as the play button. Yeah, so it doesn't work because I haven't implemented it yet. So when we implement the user interface, we also consider which element should be implemented first, so that we can prioritize our time wisely. Okay, so our next one is the tracks menu. So when you click the play button, it leads you to another menu, which is called the tracks menu, which allows the users to choose different tracks. And in designing this second menu, we consider the user experience as well. For instance, because this is a rally game, we anticipate that the users might want to use different tracks to play the game. So we have several options for the user to choose from. So for now, we only have three, and only the first one is working because we only get to implement it the first scene. But for the second and the third one, these are just placeholders. But we implemented it this way because it's easy for us to later on put in the real one. So for instance, this is just an image that represents what a track might look like. But later on, when we get the real scene, we can take a photo of it and just place it in this placeholder. So in designing the UI, we also need to consider how efficient it is for us to actually later on come back and use it again. So we don't need to write the code again and again for each of the track or each of the scene. And again, there are several more buttons and elements in this user interface. So you can see that at the right top corner is the home button, which is very common, which brings you back to the home screen. And then you can go back to the tracks menu again by clicking it. And it is very obvious, and we don't need to put any word or letter because the home button is very common in many applications. And of course, we have the arrows that represent the tracks that the users can go through so they can choose the one that they like. And this one is a loop one because the order doesn't even matter. And I also noticed that there is the lock on top of the image itself because some tracks you cannot choose that because you need to complete the first one. For example, you need to complete the whole track for the first one in order for you to lead to the second one. So you cannot click play for this one as the same as this one. And this is also represented by the dark highlight on the play button. If you look closely at the two buttons, they are different because this one represents that it is disabled, but this one is ready to be played. So if you want to play, you just click on it, and then it should lead you to the third menu, which is the cars menu. But for now, it's a bit slow. Okay, so this is the third menu, which is where you choose the car. But for now, let me go back to the menu, back to the main menu, and then go over more on how this second menu is being designed.
Another interesting aspect about this as well that Panya is referring to is essentially screen real estate. So, like Panya mentioned, when you have a certain limited space, you want to focus and emphasize the hierarchy of things based on how much space you take up. And that's generally a rule of thumb. So if you have a bigger button in the middle, that emphasizes to the user that that is the main button they should be looking at. And what Pani was showing you with the button even being there, that is part of the user experience, user interface. And having that button glow when you click it, that lets the user know that they are actually interacting with the button and that it's not just a frozen screen. So that makes the user experience smoother. So really interesting there.
Thank you. So let me go over how the second menu is designed. But for now, you couldn't see where the tracks menu is because it's being disabled. So if I enable it, you can see that these two menus overlap. This is so because the home or the main menu comes first, so we enable the main menu first, and it only activates when you click the play button. So this also represents the order in which we want to present the menus. So the main menu comes first, and then comes the tracks menu. So let me, for now, let me disable the main menu, and let me go over the tracks menu. So the some of the components of the track menu, as you can see, is the home button, which is this one. It will be clearly shown when I use the scene one, which is where I do all the design and do all the implementation. So this is the main menu, and this is the track display. So it contains the image, the track name, and other elements, like for example, the arrows and the play button. And this is just a template, as I mentioned, just the template for later implementation. So the image could be changed, the scenes could also be changed. And one thing that I want to also quickly mention is how we load the scene. So there is a special object called a scriptable object that contain all the necessary elements for user to put in the description. For example, for this one, it has the first one, the first track, and it loads to the scene that I just showed you. So let maybe get back to that later. Let me just show you like what the cars menu look like for now. Okay, so let me play the scene again, and hopefully it will load faster. And as I mentioned, I also keep the simplicity consistent. So there is not many components across this menu as well. So only the necessary components are needed. And it's very direct for the users to see and know what to do. So they can just either click play to play this track, or they can go back to the main scene to choose other options. Oh, see, so because I did not disable the tracks menu, the first thing that it loads is the track menu instead of the home menu. So let me enable the home menu and disable the track menu. I mean, you shouldn't do this, but this is a quicker way. So you can just click play. And then let's choose this track because this is the scene that we have. For now, only the first one is working, but later on it will be implemented and users can choose more scenes. So this is the cars menu where the users can select different cars to choose from. So this is part of the rally game because we know that the user want to choose a track to play on, and also want to choose a car to play on that track. So we need to implement an interface where the users can choose the car that they want. So this is the interface that I designed. And the first thing you see is the home menu again, because this is necessary if the users want to go back to the main menu and then start all over again. And you also see the arrows that again have the purpose of going through all the necessary to go through all the cars and let them choose the one that they like the most. And this is the same as the back menu. It's a bit slow because of the PC. I think it should be fine. So these are the cars that the users can choose from. And the design is very simple, and there are not many buttons or components in this menu as well. So we have the home, the two arrows to choose different cars, and again, the play, which is all across the three menus. So if the users finally want to play, they can click play. Or the another one is the tracks. If the user doesn't like the tracks that they have chosen, you can go back to this and then choose the track all over again. And once they found the track that they like, they can click play again to go back to the car selection menu. But for now, it's okay. It's loading now. So again, so if the users have chosen the track that they like, they can come to choose the car, and then they can choose the car that they want. And the difference between the cars menu and the tracks menu is that the cars menu is in a different scene. So if I stop the game from playing, let me put this back to its original state. And let me show you the scenes, the two scenes that we have so far. So we have the main menu scene, which is the scene that we have currently. And this scene contains two main user interfaces. So we have the main menu, which is with this one, and the other one. And we also have the rally game scene, which is where the third menu, the cars menu is located. So we have I chose to have these two scenes because having them in one single scene is too much, because each scene is correspond to a different tracks. So we need to have different tracks for each scene. Yeah, let me say again. So I have a different scene for this one because this one contains the actual track, so we cannot put it in just one scene. That is why we choose to put this in this scene. And this scene is more complicated because it contains all the elements and where the users are actually playing the game. As you can see, like this is where the whole roles and whole track system is located. But when designing the user interface, I really focus on the objects in the scene, but I speak to 2D because I just want to focus on the canvas where everything is located. So this is what I usually see when I design the user interface, because this canvas go on top of the whole scene. So it doesn't matter where I place this, it will always cover the scene. But then when I want to put in the cars, I need to work with the object itself. So let me play this scene directly without using the main menu. And you can see, you will be able to see what I mean. when I'm talking about the car selection. And again, the components are very simple, and there are not many of them to make, so the users can just know what to do and like where to click, and they do not get confused or overwhelmed by the UI components. Okay, so it's starting to load now. Yes, so once I click play, you can see that the cars is the only thing that is actually in the scene, but the rest are just on the canvas.
Notice how also like there's a cycle that happens when you toggle through the cars. Um, each of the cars is spinning, right? And but
Yeah.
once you click the next button, the car drops down and has this sort of bouncing effect, which I think is a very like specific choice to make. Um, because it breaks this cycle of spinning, because again you don't want to strain your users, you don't want them to constantly look at the car spinning the whole time, and as a reaction to their choice of clicking the next button, the car bounces before it enters the spinning motion. So I think two main aspects you would focus on as a UX UI designer is understanding the user and the user's essentially their experience while going through your game, and at the same time being detail oriented. Now, detail oriented doesn't specifically mean you have to over clutter your screen, as Panya mentioned. It just means refining each experience to make it suitable and comfortable for the user.
Exactly. And the spinning is part of the implementation because it's like a showcase of what the users will be getting. So in order for them to choose the car that they like, they must be able to see like all the angle of the car. So we have this, it's like a showcase of all the cars that are available for the users to choose from, as you can see. So so I went over the home button. Let it load. And the tracks button. So let me go over the other one, is the play button, which as you can see is on all the three on the three menus. So the play button is the last button that the users need to click, and when the users click on this one, it actually leads the user to the actual game. So this is when the users can play the game. So the three main menu are just like the setup for the users to choose their track and then choose the car that they want to play on. And then after that is when they can play the game itself. So it's a bit slow because of the PC, but I think it should be running. Yeah, okay, so it's getting to the play part of the game now. So this is another interface. So as I call it, is the in-games UX and UI elements. So okay, let's cover the first one, which is the main UI. So as you can see, when you are actually playing the game, when you are actually in the game itself, you have a different interface. So you have this arrow key, which is representing like a reset of the game, and the pause button at the right top corner. And there are also other interface components like the speedometer, the mini map, and there are also these three stripes of color, which doesn't have any explanation, but hopefully the users will know when they play the game, because sometimes the visuals itself are very self-explanatory. So let me go over the uh, two these two buttons first, which this one actually restart the game because we anticipate that maybe the user did not like the card that they chose, so they can click on this button and it would lead them to the card selection again. And you might ask, like, why don't we go back to the track selection? So we are still deciding on that because resetting means so many things. In this case, it could mean that the users want to choose a different car, or the users want to actually like start the game over like from the start. So, but for now, we choose to just go back to the car selection path, and then we have another option where the users can actually go back to choose the tracks again and choose the car again. So I went over that the first time, so let me go over the other button. So this button actually bring up another menu, which is called the pause menu. And this pause menu has three other buttons the users can choose from. So we have the continue, the home, and the quit. So the continue is self-explanatory. So the user might want to pause the game to do something, and then later on they come back to continue it. So they can do that, and they can just click continue to play the game again. So it's a bit slow. So okay, so I just go over the buttons for now. So let's go back to the pause menu. So the continue will let users continue the game again. And then we have the home menu. So this one actually brings the user back to the main menu. So they will start the process again from the start. So they will go back to the main menu and then go back to the tracks menu where they choose the track that they want to play on. And then let me just show you. So we'll go back to the main menu where they like go over the process again. Maybe because they actually like don't like the track or they don't like the car, so just go back here and then choose the track that they want to play on and click play again. So these are the things that we anticipate when we design the user interface. And the user experience and user interface, they really overlaps because we consider what the user wants, and then we implemented that by creating the UI. So let's choose a different car and then go back. And you can see that when you click the play, there is a short time where the car is moving on its own. It's like a cutscene of the car before you actually play the car itself. So the car is moving to the starting point, and before you actually can play or can control the car, there will be a countdown from 3. So it's like a way for the users to get ready and to tell user when to actually start controlling the car. It's a bit laggy because of the PC, but let me start again to show you the whole process again. So let me choose the car again, and here again it's like giving the user a moment to get ready. And here it would be better if we have a button that let the users skip this part, because maybe the users just want to play the game directly instead of waiting for the car to move to the starting location. So these are other things that we also consider when we design the user interface and user experience. So you see that the countdown to from 3 to 1, and then there's the goal that indicates the user to be ready and to play the game. Okay, let me go back to the pause menu again. And we went over the home menu and the continue button. So let's talk about the other button, which is the quit. It is something that might happen because the user wants to just quit the game. So we also have that anticipated and also have that option available as well. And you can see that when the game is paused, the timer is also paused. Okay, yeah, I think I forgot to talk about the timer. So as part of a rally game, a timer is necessary because it keeps tracks of the time it takes for the users to complete the track. So the less the time, the faster you have completed the track and the better it is. So the timer is at the top because the users will all be always looking at the screen at the center. So it's important that the users are able to see how much time has passed since they started playing the game. Yeah, but the timer needs to be paused when the game is paused because then it would be fair for the users because it wouldn't make sense for the timer to be kept going when the game itself is paused. And when the game is paused, it means that everything is paused as well. So you cannot control the car or you cannot do anything until you click the continue button again. And another thing that you also notice is the speedometer because it is a racing car, it's necessary to know how fast your car is going. So it's important to have that. So when you are moving the car, the speed is always changing. It's a bit like this. So let me start the scene again.
Some other elements as well of this experience of letting the user know that they've made their selection and now there's a starting scene is also sound. Sound is a big component of user experience and user interface, in that if you hear an engine running, you know that your car is moving. If you hear a beeping sound that leads down to the countdown, you know that you still can't control the car yet, and you have to wait until the beeping is done to then obviously control your car. And while we are not showing it right now because we're still in the process of including sound, which is one of the things we would want your help in as well. It's important to keep in mind a holistic experience. So not just relating to what you're seeing on screen, but also what you're hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Sound is really an important part of the user interface as well because for now you can see that when I click the buttons, it doesn't make any sound, which is kind of weird because it doesn't feel right when you click on something. So it would be even better to have the sound. But for now, we only have the visual. Like you can see when I click on it, is like a quick change in color of the arrow. So it's kind of coming from yeah from from light to dark to show that the button is clicked. Okay, let's go back to the car selection again. Okay, so let me choose a different car. This one for now. Little reasonable. Okay, this one. again, you have some time to see the car is moving, a time to get ready to play the game. And I say it would be better if have like a button to skip so that the users don't need to go through all this waiting. And once they reach the starting point, there'll be a timer for the users to know when to actually control the car itself. So countdown from sorry, okay. Only when the timer go to 0 is when you're able to control the car. And so I talked about the speedometer. So let me talk about the minimap as well. So because it's a racing game and you are not really familiar with the track, it's important to know where you are at any point of the driving. So have the minimap to show the view from the top, and the arrow icon represents the car itself, and the blue represents the road. And I have a cube like blocking the path. That's why I'm not going anywhere, because I will talk about it later on. So just focus on the minimap for now. So for the minimap, just really is just to guide the user and to let them know, like for example, if they need to turn or which part of the scene they are at. Like you can see, like there's like a turn up ahead in here, but you wouldn't be able to see it from where you are now. Okay, let me disable this cube for now so I can show you like more of the path. Okay, it's loading. As you can see, I don't need to go back to the main menu again, because this is like a debugging part of the design and development of the game. So this is easier, because if I need to go through all the main menus, it will take a lot of time. So when I have like a separated scene, I just can play the scene directly and then do the debugging and do the testing directly. So it's really saves a lot of time as well. So these are the things that we consider when we implement different scenes for our game.
This is also kind of where
Okay,
user
so it's loading.
comes in as well. So like Panya just mentioned, you want to be able to iterate on your previous design, and the way you want to create the best interface for the user is obviously through testing it with the user, because eventually we are creating it for the user. So user testing is a very big part of the process of creating a smoother interface as well.
Yeah. Can you read me the question, please? There are many things. Yeah, I think I get the question.
So I think the question was, what are the biggest challenges when coming up with a user interface, right?
I think that's the question. I mean, there are so many things to consider when doing the UIs and UX, and mainly, I think it's based on like personal experience. So you need to go through like a lot of iterations. Like you have like experienced something before and you put that in the game, and then sometimes it doesn't work. For instance, when I designed this car selection menu, I faced a lot of problem because when I do the car dropping, I need to like disable the like some of the components of the car for it to work properly. So sometimes what you think will work doesn't actually work, and there are so many things to like consider when you design something. And I think like testing is like the main like challenge and the main part of this whole process, because you actually need to do a lot of like iterations to like to know like whether it's feel right, whether it looks right. So it's a lot of testings and a lot of iterations. Okay, so let me show you the minimap again. This time without the cube blocking the path. And I will talk more about the cube later on, because that is part of the debugging process and part of the testing process. So that's why it has a purpose when designing this. Yeah, I think I need to have about time to skip this, because as you can see, it takes a lot of time for the car to move to the starting point. So, okay, so it's finally here. As you can see, I cannot control the car until it said go. And when I control the car, the minimap is where you look at to see where you are on the road and like where to turn. For instance, here, you can see that it's like a turn, so you are ready to take turn. Yes. But sometimes you don't really know what all the elements are until like you like do something accidentally. So for instance, if I enable the cube again and play the scene again, something different will happen. But the whole process is still the same. It is much faster when I have only Unity running, because like this takes a lot of time. But when I do it, it takes less time because I have like less apps running. So yeah, time is also something that you need to consider when you do the debugging and doing the testing and doing all the iterations. Yeah, so okay. Okay. Okay, let me talk. Okay, let's the car get to the start. Another thing that yeah, I can talk about is about like this. Another part of debugging is this printing. So it say here car hits because it like tell me like what happened during the scene. So when something happens, it let me know that something is actually working. So this is a really good tool for debugging, like printing out what happens at certain part of the game. So this is the what happened when you like collide with the car, and you can see that this happened. So like you see that the red bar like decreases. So it means that maybe this represents the health, and it kind of makes sense because in most games, health or like hit point or HP is represented by the red bar. So when you keep hitting this, if you notice that the bar keep decreasing to show that the car is taking damage, and it keep decreasing. And when your health is like depleted, you notice this cool effect where you like your car like go back to the main, go to this starting location, which is called the checkpoint, which I don't think we'll go over today. So let me show you this again. So this is a quick way to test this, like whether the health is working. So I have a game object that like take care of the health. Okay, it should be in the in-game UI elements. Yeah, so it's important to like to name your game objects correctly so you can like know where to go. And okay, so this is about the health. So for now you can see that the health is at 100%. So if you could decrease the health, like it's like to like first like 50, you can see that like the health is decreasing, and you go to 0, like the car is like actually respawning again. Yeah. So this is like another part of like how you can debug and how to see whether your things work or not. Or you can just like have something like in the middle of the path to collide, and then like you have to like hit the car and see if like something is actually working. And we also have the other colors, which I will quickly go over. So the green one is the booster. So when it is full, you're able to boost your car. So you can hit a certain effect and you can see the visual that the car is should be spinning up, but for now it doesn't work yet, but it should be boosted, which is another thing that we consider because speed is something that users really want for a car. So that's why we have the booster. And we also have the green one, which is for the rewind. So when it is full, you're able to like go. Okay, let me show. So it's loading more slowly, and we can see that this part, it like the three colors cover the minimap because it's something that the users look at. And so we have like this one place where everything is located. So the users can just take a glance and then go back to look at the car. So let me quickly show you the rewind feature of this car. So if you press E, okay, I think it will like hold the E. So that we try to get back to full again. Okay, so when it's full, you can able to like go back in time, like because sometimes you might be stuck in some location. So it's important you have like this feature where you can go back in time and doing the rewind. I think, so I went over the main menu, the feedback visuals, and the checkpoint, like I said, is like when you like die, it lets you go back to like the most recent location. For example, if your health is back to 0, it will like make you respawn at this location because this is the most recent location that you have gone through. And yes, checkpoint. And for the desert, it's something really that you cannot see. But for example, if you go outside the area that you're supposed to go, there is something that called dead zones, which like prevent the user from like going out into like unwanted space, for example. And I will show like you all the dead zones that are available. So when you can see all these black area where the dead zones are located. So these are the place where users are not allowed to go. So this is another way like to make user like go to place where they are supposed to go and not just wander off into the wrong direction. Okay, finally, okay, see, when you hit the dead zone, the user actually need to get back to the checkpoints. And that's
So
what I got for you today.
I think wrapping up then a lot of these topics that Pani was mentioning, such as the dead zones, the different screen spaces you should focus on. I think it's very important to summarize some of the main points that go into user experience and user interface. And a lot of these essentially revolve on the user testing and the process of understanding what goes into a good experience. So by creating an experience, you need to obviously have an experience of your own to fall back on. And ways you can get a good analysis or a good understanding of what a good display is or what a good interface is by playing these games yourselves. Play some of your favorite games, look at how those interfaces work, look at how different it works on phone, on mobile versus on PC. And yeah, I think that would be all for today. We look forward to having you join us on our next stream where we'll be talking about moving arts from sketches into actual assets. We'll be live streaming from a drawing software directly, so be sure to tune in more to that so you can learn more. And yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.